right, thank you for coming to my channel. I'm going to be working on the Uniquely Creative Marian Bright album. First of all, I want to apologize for my voice. I've been sick, and so I'm just getting over that. But I wanted to do the video in a couple different parts so that it's easier for you guys to take breaks and to follow along, I guess. So I'm going to do the album cover on this video. And again, this is for the Marian Bright album that I'm making, and the paper is gorgeous. So I will tell you right now that I am also going to use in this album, if you want to get ready. So I have the 6x8 flip folio album by Uniquely Creative also, and the dies. So I'm going to try and come up with other ways of using the folio. So I probably will leave this intact the way it is, but I'm thinking, and this one, but I'm thinking I'm going to cut this stuff apart into 3 separate sections and use it as base pages in some way. So stay tuned. I haven't worked it all out yet, but I wanted to give you a heads up that I will be using this folio by Uniquely Creative that you can get at Country Craft Creations also. So for the cover, let's go ahead and get started. Your chipboard pieces, this album is going to be 6.5 by 8.5. And whenever I say the first number, that is my width. And then I have a spine piece that's 2.5 by 8.5. So I have wrapped one cover. So I am using the white Artisan cardstock. So I cut 2 pieces that are 8.5 by 10.5. So you go 2 inches larger on the width and the height as you're wrapping. And I'm going to place that down. And I have this tool from Country Craft Creations that is a 1-inch border so that I can lay that down just like so. And I do already have my score tape on the back of my chipboard pieces. I like really good coverage, so I cover the whole piece with the sheets if possible. And then I have to do a little piecing here when it's not exactly the right width. So there we go. So let me take these strips off. So then this guide, I'm just going to bump the chipboard up against the yellow bars horizontal and vertically. And then you have a perfect border for your album to wrap it. Now, anytime you're using the score tape, you do want to give it a good burnish. So again, this paper is 8.5 by 10.5. So then you want to train your paper. So I always just lift it up and over my chipboard and I give it a burnish. And I do that on all 4 sides. And this is the lay flat method. I've just come to realize that it's so much easier than having that long piece of paper to deal with. So let me move this up just a hair. Okay. So what I do when I make my covers, I still use 1/4 inch score tape on the perimeter of the chipboard and on the perimeter of my paper. And I have a feeling I'm going to be running out of score tape here in a second. So I have another roll ready to go. I used to not like making the covers because they were so cumbersome with all that combined paper, but I just love them now. They go pretty quick. They're easy. Anyone can do it. So then I am, like I said, anytime you use score tape, let's give it a burnish. And I don't put on the score tape until I miter my corners. So I'm going to go ahead and I use this tool. You don't have to use it. You can just cut on the diagonal. Just make sure you give yourself about a 1/8 inch from the corner. So I'll show you that it does not go straight to the corner. It's between 1/16 and 1/8 of an inch. So I'm going to do that to all 4 corners. I will also say it's better to leave a little bit too much than not enough because you don't want that chipboard to show on the corner. That's like my pet peeve. I can't cannot do that. So then we're going to now put the score tape on the perimeter of the paper because I don't like to waste my score tape. So I always do it after the corners are cut. And oh, there we go. I knew it was going to be out pretty soon. There we go. Okay. And you'll do this the same way for both front and back cover. If you're familiar with making this using the lay flat method, like I said, the cover is 6.5 by 8.5. The spine is 2.5 by 8.5. I'm going to have 4 hinges, or yeah, 4 hinges. Oopsie, I forgot one side. And the hinge is going to be 5.5 by 8. So if you don't want to watch all the way through because you know how to make this, you can just use those measurements. Now I burnish. It was funny on one of my videos, I mentioned that I use the word burnish a lot, and somebody wrote, that should be the new drinking game, and I cracked up. So now we're going to remove the backing of the score tape. And I'll do just one side here on the paper. Okay. So when you do your cover then, I use a combination of the score tape and the art glitter glue. The art glitter glue gets a line across so that it touches the chipboard so that the paper will stick real well and we can smooth it out so it's a nice crisp edge. So then bring it up and over and smooth it down. Give it a real strong, you got it, burnish. And then I stand it up on the opposite side so I can give it a swipe across the edge. Okay, I do opposite sides first. And I used to not put the glue up against the chipboard, and then somebody told me, maybe it was Tammy Merrill from Country Craft Creations, about how nice and smooth it will look if you put it up against the chipboard. And we want it to be, that's the first thing people see is our cover. So we want to make sure we put the time and effort into this and do it as neatly as possible. So because I miter my corners at an angle, I have a little excess. So I'm going to push down and in with this bone folder burnishing thing. These can be bought at Country Craft Creations too. I like it for different purposes. I have a whole bunch of scoring tools, but this one I use for these corners. It's got kind of it's very firm. So if you are using paper that's not from Country Craft Creations, you'll have to be careful if you're using this to score, because it is a little bit more firm and I don't want it to rip your paper. So because I tucked those in, when I wrap it and bring the paper around the chipboard, I'm just going to make sure I hold down those 2 corners again, just to make sure they don't come up. I want it to be a nice crisp corner. And to do that, I will have to, I'll show you. You have a little bit of not a pucker, but a little bit of excess. So I just take my bone folder or my burnishing tool, whatever, and just kind of work with it so that it lays down a little bit more. And same on the side here. One last corner, and then we'll move on to the spine. We do the spine differently. I'm so glad Tammy has brought in the Uniquely Creative paper collection. Everything they make is absolutely gorgeous. So be careful if you're using white. You just don't want it to get, you know, keep your hands clean so you don't stain the paper. But there's our front and back cover. So now we're going to move on to our spine. And that spine piece, whatever your width is, add 3 inches, because rather than a 1-inch border on the sides, we're going to use a 1.5 inch so that it can connect to the front and back cover a little bit nicer. So then instead of using this tool, I have separate spacers that you can get. So I need 1 inch at the top and a 1.5 inch on the side. So this spacer is 1.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead and slide that underneath. I probably should have laid that down first. Okay. Remove the backing. So I try and prep as much as I can before the video so you don't have to watch me do some things that are like watching paint dry. Okay. All right, so I am just going to start burnishing. This will get a lot of movement in your book because every time you open and close, so you want to make sure that we're creasing the paper and training it so it knows that it needs to open and close and be flexible. Excuse me. So I'm also going to bend it this way. Okay. All right. So on this spine piece, I cut the rectangles at an angle and take that triangle off. We're just trying to get rid of some bulk. I must have some tape on my, yep, I do, on my scissors. So take off a triangle on all 4 of those rectangles on the corner. For you math people, we now have a trapezoid at the end of our paper. 1 set of parallel lines. Okay, so I still like to use some score tape. So I just put the score tape here on the short ends. I put it here on my paper. And then I do the same thing on the other end, just trying to make sure it's strong and durable. Okay, sometimes I use this to cut paper, my score tape, sometimes I don't. Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to gross you out, but man, I am just sick of this congestion. So now I'm going to fill in this whole area with glue, and I do still put it up against the chipboard. We still want a nice smooth edge. I do put a little bit on the side of the chipboard just so that it can grab hold of that paper when I fold it over. So when I bring this up and over, I get my burnishing or my score tool. What am I trying to say? My bone folder. And I just want to make sure it tucks real well up against that chipboard. Now, this is strong and I like how firm it is, so this is why I'm using this first. And then I flatten it out with this one. And I get rid of that excess glue. Okay, and then smooth out your edge. And repeat. Chipboard. My glue's getting yucky at the end. All of the inside here, a little bit on the side of the chipboard. Up and over. Tuck it up against that chipboard before you flatten it. Get rid of any of that excess glue that oozes. Alrighty. So I'm going to go back to the first end. I do like to get rid of some bulk. I'm not going to cut it at a real sharp miter. I'm just going to do a slight miter. So going from the end of the chipboard, I'm just going to take off a skinny sliver, like so. Skinny sliver. All four sides. I'm gonna have to go back and fix that one. I didn't go all the way to the chipboard. All right. Keep a nice clean work area. So now I'm going to just make sure that I bring this paper up against the chipboard. We will be attaching our front and back cover on this section, so we want a real easy line to see here. Okay. So I like to do a dry fit just to make sure. I don't want any mistakes after I put the book, put adhesive on it, but that looks like it lines up real well. I just want to make sure I cut everything right. And voila, yes. So, excuse me, again, I use a combination of the score tape. Now I'm going to put this close to the chipboard, but not on the chipboard. I'm leaving about 1/8 of an inch, I would say. And then I put it at the end. All right, now I do have some overhang on my score tape, so I'll have to go back and clip that. So about 1/8 of an inch away. So funny story, I bought my daughter I think it's like a crimping, like iron, you know, for your hair. She's lucky when she dries her hair, or when she gets, you know, out of the shower, her hair's like totally curly, and it's just the right amount of wave, and she can do it flat. She looks good either way. So anyway, I got her this thing in case, you know, she had a spot or something that didn't curl like it was supposed to. So I thought, you know what? I wonder what that would look like on my hair. So my hair's short right now. I'm trying to let it grow. So I did it this morning. Oh my gosh. I look ridiculous right now. I look like a clown. So yeah, did not work real well for me, just saying. I'm embarrassed. Okay, so I'm also going to come by and just, you know, give that a good burnish too. Oh, yeah. I don't want that to... It's getting dry here, but it's getting colder. Okay. Yeah, that looks like maybe I just didn't burnish it very well. Okay. So we want our book to lay flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put my cover on like this to make sure that it does lay flat. So I'm going to remove the backing. And I am going to put glue. And I'm going to be generous. So I'm going to put it in between here, the two pieces of score tape. I'm putting a little bit on top just to give me some wiggle room in case I need to move it. Okay. And so I'm going to, this part just always worries me that I'm not going to get it on right, but wish this would lay down all the way. So I'm gonna put that there. And make sure it doesn't go cattywampus. I'm gonna open it up and give it a firm burnish. And then we'll do the same thing on the opposite side. I'm going to remove the backing and fill in with glue. Being generous. Art glitter glue is magic. It does work fabulously, but I still want to put extra on. Okay, and I want to make sure when I lay this down that it lines up with that other cover that we just put on. Ouch. So I'm trying to push this down as this at the same time I'm laying this down. Oopsie. Well, sassafras, come on. You know, it looks like I'm going to get my fingers a little dirty. Okay. And let's burnish. Looking good. I just don't like this when my paper gets dirty, even though it'll be covered. All right, so now we are going to cover the inside spine. So I'm going to use a full sheet to cover. And I have already placed, oh, not that one, score tape on the back. I had a little boo-boo and had to peel it off, so hope it lays down flat. This piece is 5 by 8 3/8. Oh, I don't like that. I wanted it wider. You know what? I'm going to use it, but if I were you, you're going to want to go 5 1/2 or maybe even wider. Let's see. That's 5. I'd go 6. So go 6 by 8 3/8 instead of 5. I was not thinking. I was thinking that these were each 1 inch and they're 1 1/2 inches. That's why. So let me change that to a 6 so there's no confusion. 6. Okay. So yours will cover the whole white piece and just kind of smooth it out. I really don't think you're going to notice when I start adding paper and decorating, and no one will even know except me. Come on. This is where I had the little boo-boo with my paper. So part of my paper's thicker in one, thinner in another spot, because when I took the tape off, it started to take the paper with it. So I'm just going to center this, and I'm going to make sure I leave about the same amount of space top and bottom. I actually have more space down at the bottom than the top. Some days are better than others when I do this. So yeah, normally I would have this over and it would keep everything nice and flat. But when I put my pattern paper on and do my flips and flaps and all that kind of stuff, you won't know. So I just want to make sure it is attached real well. And then I'm going to take this tool, and as I bring this up, just kind of tuck it in gently. And again, you'll have the hinge on here too, so you'll never know about my little oops. Okay, so this is our book. It's looking good. Now, I do want to make sure that I get my corners real good. So I will look at this and decide, is there one side that's better than the other, so I can determine what's the front and what's the back. I can already tell that I want this to be my front. So next is the hinge. So you're going to get a 5.5 by 8 inch piece. So our page, the book is 8.5, but our hinge and pages will be 8 inches tall, like so. Oh, I don't like how I didn't go all the way to the end here. Let's see, how do I don't like that. Because I can see this line. You know what, I'm going to put pattern paper on here to fix this. So I'm going to go ahead and get my paper. Let's see. Yeah, this is not going to make me happy. You know what? Let's just use this paper. This is the blueberry vellum. Let's see how this looks. We'll put that down. And I'm just going to cover this piece. I'll take care of these little things later. So let's make this, usually you go the same width after you put it together. 2.5. I'm just going to go a hair shorter than 2.5. And I'm going to cut it at 8.5. And then I might have to trim it. So this is 8.5. Let's go a hair shorter than 2.5. Just a hair. So this is 8.5 long. I do want to trim it just a hair. Just a little smidge. Oh, I don't like how that. Yeah, that's going to be better. I can live with that. Now, I do have a little fuzz from my paper cutter, so I do want to make sure I take care of that. I don't like that at all. I know it's a newer blade. I think it's just the cutter itself. I don't know. Sometimes I have luck with it. Sometimes I don't. Okay. I'm just going to glue this with regular glue. I'm not going to use any score tape. I'm going to make sure I get to the edges. And when I burnish it, it will burnish it real well that the glue oozes all over so that it has a nice fit and it doesn't move and it lays nice and flat. So again, this was a hair shorter than 2.5 and it's a hair shorter than 8.5. Okay. Okay. All right, let's put this on. Oh yeah, that's going to be way better. Before I push down, I want to make sure it's lined up. Okay. Give it a real strong burnish. And normally I mean, a lot of times I put paper on my spine, but not always. Sometimes I just leave it white or whatever color of cardstock I'm using to wrap. Okay. All right, so let's go back to this hinge. Let's make it 5.5 by 8. So because I am having 4 pages, each hinge for a page is, you figure, an inch. And then the space in between, I'm doing a half. So there will be 3 spaces in between my hinges. So that's another 1.5 inches. So that's how I came up with the 5.5 by 8. So what you do for your hinges is we're going to place the 5.5 inches across the top. I've already pre-scored, but we're just going to score it every 1/2 inch. So hold it down so it doesn't shift, and you're just going to go 1/2, 1, get that other, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, and 5. Okay, so every 1/2 inch. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to just a slight shave of this paper on each end, so that when because this is a hinge that doesn't go over, it just stays on the just stays on the spine. So when I fold this down, I don't want any extra paper here. So like I said, just a fine line. I'm going to shave off the front and the back, or the first and the last, I should say. Just a hair, like a hair. Like, this is how, oh, that doesn't look great. Let's see. Let me get my scissors. Okay. And this is how much I took off, like hardly at all. And now the other side. Okay. So what we do is we're going to burnish the first two. Every hinge gets 2 pieces glued together. Get my area clean here. And then I'm going to fold it the opposite way. Okay, so the first 2 I burnished together. I'll be gluing those. Then I'll skip the third one because that'll be a gusset. And then I'm going to use the 4th and 5th. I just kind of score back and forth. So the 4th and the 5th. You're going to skip the 6th. Oh, what did I do? I did that wrong. I forgot my gusset. I wasn't paying attention. Okay. Oh my goodness, why am I having such an issue today? I'm going to blame it on my head cold. How about that? Okay, so there's 2 hinges. Just kind of training them to go both directions. So I'm just going to go ahead and burnish those score marks. I'm just going to make my life easy and do them all this direction right now. Let's see. Remember, this last one's a little bit shorter, so it's not going to line up exactly right. Okay, so here's my 2 hinges. The next one is going to be a gusset, and then I'm going to attach 2 pieces for the hinge. I'm going to lay it one direction and burnish, and then I'm going to fold it the other direction and burnish. The next one is a gusset, and then the last 2 become the last hinge. Burnish it one direction and then the other. So it looks like this. So now we just have to glue it. And I'm pretty generous with the glue when it comes to the hinges also. We don't want those coming apart. No, no, no. Some people use score tape. I used to. It's whatever works for you. Okay, and then I'm just going to push those together. And I'm going to make sure the glue sticks. It's okay if it runs out the end because we want the ends sealed real well. Okay, let's skip one and then do the next hinge. Squeeze it together. I'm going to fold it over, make sure that glue sticks. Okay, skip the next one, it's a gusset. Put then 2 together for the hinge. Squeeze together, lay it down on a side to spread that glue around. Making sure you really do a firm burnish at the ends. We want them to look like it's one piece, not 2 glued together. And then finally, we're going to do the last one. Okay, that should do it. Fold it over. Let's get that glue to stick those 2 pieces together. I do have a little bit coming out onto my board here. Okay. Looks fabulous. So now we're going to attach this to our book. And we are going to use glue. I do anyway. And I'm going to slather it with glue on the back here. So again, I want to make sure I know which one I want for the front and back. Let's see. I wanted it this way. Okay. So now we're going to center this on our spine. And you kind of push in the first and last one just so you can get a good feel to see if the 2 sides here. I do have spacers from Country Craft Creations also to make sure that they are equal. I could put these on either side. I think they're a little bit shorter. That's probably better to use that as a guide. So I might just leave those here so that as I'm gluing, I make sure I center it between those 2. Okay, lots of glue, especially at the end here. Go all the way to the end. Oops, I'm going over. Patience on this. I told you I use a lot. I'm not lying. Especially there. Make sure I go all the way to the end and have my cloth ready in case I need to wipe it up. Okay, I'm not going to push down yet. I want to see top and bottom if it's centered. No, it is not. I like that better. So now I'm going to go in between my hinges with my finger first in those gussets. And I just want to make sure I give it a super duper firm burnish. We don't want these going anywhere. So now I'm going to move them to the side and push. Now to the other side and push down. That may not be the most even that I've ever put on a hinge. Looks like it's not even at the top and the bottom, but oh, nobody will know. All right, so that is going to be all I do for this video, just the cover. Now I have to sit down and say, okay, how am I going to design the pages? I do know that my goal, like I said, is to use these from the folio, 6x8 folio from Uniquely Creative. I don't know, maybe I'll just glue that on here. you know what? Maybe I will. I kind of like that idea, but then I do. I might just leave this the way it is. Like that. And then I'll have to have some sort of closure. And then I might make a pocket back here and stuff this in it. And then I can put this someplace else. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'll probably put my pattern paper on first. I think I'm going to love that. Okay, stay tuned. There is a part 2 and possibly a part 3. I don't know. I haven't got that far yet. So, all right, thanks everybody. And go to Country Craft Creations and get this paper. It is absolutely gorgeous.